New ethical and sustainability laws will impact global food supply chains. Ethical and sustainable practices in global supply chains will be impacted by a new law in Germany. The law requires German companies of a certain size to investigate their supply chains and take adequate measures to prevent or mitigate human rights risks and environmental risks. The law comes into effect for companies with more than 3,000 employees in 2023 and for companies with more than 1,000 employees in 2024. Unlike a similar French law, the German law covers indirect suppliers with whom the German company does not necessarily have direct commercial relationships. This new law could motivate suppliers to become less transparent and more clandestine about unethical practices so as to protect their business with German companies. Child labour, which is important to some food-producing communities in developing countries, is one area where local and international rules and perceptions might disagree. Other countries in the European Union are expected to follow with similar rules in the next few years. Legislation at the European Union level has been proposed. The proposed directive will make supply chain due diligence mandatory for all large and listed companies in the EU. But it's not just a European thing. I have heard it said, and I've got anecdotal evidence only, that US Customs is stopping shipments at their borders, requesting evidence from importers that their products are free from child labour under the USA Forced Labour Prevention Act. It's not a new issue. For example, in 2016, a survey of farmed prawns, salmon and sea bass labelled as responsibly farmed or responsibly sourced in UK supermarkets found discrepancies. The majority of the products were rated by the Marine Stewardship Council as level 3, meaning that they were from an environmental perspective, they were not responsibly sourced. So there's a discrepancy between what the labels said and what other industry bodies thought. It's hard to agree on the finer details of what makes an ethical or sustainable supply chain, and this is where food businesses are going to struggle. What may be considered to be ethical sourcing in 2022 might be considered unsatisfactory in 5 or 10 years' time. The first step should be to gain full oversight of every supply chain, so you at least know what is happening. Well, that's a theory anyway. Once you have an idea of what's happening in a supply chain, you can start to make judgments about what is acceptable and what's not. But in practice, however, we've got a long way to go with transparency in food supply chains. This new German law is yet another incentive to get more serious about collecting detailed information from suppliers and their suppliers where we can. Every step is a step in the right direction. So in short, a new German due diligence law will affect global supply chains. More is going to follow in Europe and elsewhere. There is going to be motivation to make fraudulent claims about labour practices and environmental management. And that motivation is going to probably increase as a result of the new laws.